morning everyone. Today we're going to look at a beaded netting technique. So I'm going to show you this little bracelet. I'm going to show you the back of it first because the back of it shows you the actual net, and then if I flip it over you'll see how I've embellished it with Swarovski crystals, and it's a really nice textured, sparkly yet still delicate bracelet to make. Now in a previous demo for you I've shown you some basic netting, but the back of it looked like this, so you can see the diamond shape netting on that one, and I'll pop a link to that below so that if you want to look at that kind of netting you can. This netting, I'm going to show you one that's not embellished yet, is a little squarer. It doesn't have the diamonds that this one did. So again, there's a link to this in the comments below, and today we're going to concentrate on this kind of netting. Let's have a look at what we're going to be using, and the one I'm going to do a demo on today, I'm going to simplify slightly. You can see in the one I made previously I've used two different colours of the Swarovski crystals, and I've used a contrasting size 11 seed bead that shines up against these clear crystal AB Swarovski Bicones on this one. So for today I'm going to be just using one colour of the 4mm Swarovski Bicones, and they are Crystal Silver Night. This is going to be a bit more of a little black dress number rather than a more delicate sort of flowery day number. Then I've got two colours of size 11 seed beads. I've got my main colour, which I'm going to use for my netting, which is Galvanised Silver, and the colour that I'm going to use, like I have here on either side of the crystals, so you get a little clump in the middle and one on either side, is called Galvanized Steel. So we've got two size 11s, one 4mm Swarovski crystal bicone. You could use fire polish beads if you wanted to instead. Then I've got a toggle clasp to finish off the design. I've got a size 10 beading needle, and I have got fireline. You could use wildfire as well, and you can use the 6 pound or the 8 pound in this because all the hole sizes in the beads are big enough to take the 8 pound. And you're going to, well, I'm using crystal in this one, so the white. You can use the smoke or wildfire comes in many different colours as well. You'll also need a thread zapper or some scissors to just snip your thread, and then we're ready to get started. Right, so I've moved a few of the extra beads that we're going to be using for embellishing out of the way for now, and we're just left with the galvanized silver, which is what we're going to use to make this netting, and it's size 11 seed beads. So I want to just look at the netting in a little bit more detail before we get going. Making this, if I pop my needle straight down the middle there, it kind of divides the netting into a top strip and a bottom strip. And when we make it, we're going to bead the top strip all the way to the other end, turn round, and then bead the lower strip, joining it onto the top strip as we go. So if we look at one end, you can see I've started with ladder stitch. And again, remember, we're just looking at the top strip of beading, and it's in sets of 2 beads here, and we get to the first little circle or square, and you can see that it's made up of 8 beads. So you've got 2 on the side, 2 across the top, 2 down the other side, and 2 across the bottom. And when you come to make the next little square or circle, you're using 2 from the side of the previous one, adding 2 to the top, 2 to the side, 2 to the bottom. So we're in sets of 2 when we're doing ladder stitch, and when we do the little right angle weave sections, we're using 8 beads for each little ring, but we might be borrowing from the ring before to make up the 8. Onto your needle, you're going to thread a workable length of thread. I normally work with about 2 meters of thread. You will probably have to add in for this, but I find that anything more than 2 meters, you could get yourself in a bit of a tangle. So I've threaded on my file line, and I'm going to start by picking up 4 of my size 11 galvanized silver little seed beads. And I'm going to move them down towards the end of my thread. I'm going to leave about a 20 centimeter tail because I can use that tail to add my clasp on at the very, very end. So I've got my 4 seed beads there, and I am going to be threading my needle back through the first 2. So if I pull that way, you can see my needle is only going through the first 2. And when I pull my thread all the way through, you will see that I suddenly have 2 columns of 2 beads. So they're the first 2 and the set that I took my needle through for a second time, and the second 2 are lying alongside it. So you've got 2 columns of 2. We want to continue beading in this direction. So we need our thread to be exiting the beads furthest on the right. So without picking up any more beads, you're just going to pass your needle back down through both those beads. And this is your ladder stitch. So I'm going to pick up another 2. And this time my thread is exiting from the base of these 2 beads, and I'm going to pass the needle back through the same 2, but from the opposite direction, so from the top to the bottom. And when I pull my thread through, I now have a 3rd column of 2 beads. And again, I want to be exiting the beads that are furthest away from my tail, so the beads that are closest to where I want to continue my beadwork. And I'm going to pick up another 2. I think I did 5 columns of 2 to begin with. So now the thread's exiting at the top. I'm going to pass the needle through both the beads, but from the bottom to the top. And I've got 1 more column to add, but before I pick up any more beads, I've got to pass the needle down through these 2 on the end. I'm just following the thread path, so if the thread is exiting at the top, you're going to pass through the next 2 beads from the top to the bottom. If the thread is exiting at the bottom, you're going to pass through the next 2 beads from the bottom to the top. And that's 4 columns of 2, and I'm just going to do 1 more. I always seem to use odd numbers. And I'm passing through those final 2. And because my first bit of right angle weave is going to be after these last 2 beads I've just added, I'm going to pass my needle through them. Now, if you remember when I showed you this little strip, remembering it's a double strip, we counted that there were 8 beads in total in the little round. So I already have 2 on the side. So I need to pick up another 6. That's 2 for the top, 2 for the other side, and 2 for the bottom. And I'm going to pass back through those same 2 beads from the opposite direction to where the thread is exiting from. The thread has got caught around my bead board. I pull that through. I now need to pass through the beads in this ring. It doesn't look like much yet, so that I'm exiting the 2 that are going to be on the side. So if I just use my needle to pull these into place a little bit, my thread is exiting 2 on the side. I've got to come through 2 on the top, and then down through 2 on the side. And in our netting, we had, there's our chain of 5 ladder stitch. We had 1 ring followed by another ring, and then we've got 4 bits of chain of ladder in total, but remember this is one side of the ring and the fourth one is one side of the next ring. So I've come through 2 on the side. I need to pick up 2 for the bottom, 2 for the other side, and 2 for the top. So that's 6, plus borrowing 2 on the side from the previous one gives me my total of 8. And this time I'm passing my needle through the 2 beads on the bottom and then up through 2 beads that make one of the sides. Now I'm ready to continue with ladder stitch. So I'm picking up 2 beads, and just as we did in the beginning, I'm now passing through 2 beads. And these 2 I've just added will sit in a column alongside the previous 2. Without picking up any beads, you want to pass your needle back down through the 2 you've just added before picking up 2 more. And we're going to pass through the beads from the top to the bottom. And before picking up any more, we need to get our needle exiting the beads closest to where we're going to continue. And I'm going to pick up one more set of 2. And just finish my ladder stitch. And I'm now ready to add another 2 little circles of my right angle weave. And as before, my needle has already passed through, or my thread has come through those 2 there, so I'm going to pick up 2 for the bottom, 2 for the side, and 2 for the top. That's 6, and I'm passing back through these 2 on the side to make my 8. And I'm going to pass through 2 beads of the base and up through 2 beads of the side. And I'm ready to do another little ring, so 6 more beads, 4, 5, 6, and pass through the 2 to make up the 8 on the side. I'll get my fingers out the way in the moment. And now to continue beading, I need to pass through the 2 that form the top, and 2 that come down the side. And I'm now ready to do another little stretch of ladder stitch, continuing this way. So you're going to continue this, doing your ladder and 2 little rings, ladder, 2 little rings, until you've got a length that is suitable to fit around your wrist. Remember to allow for the width of your clasp. That takes out a big chunk. That's the width of 2 of my little rings and a whole section of ladder stitch. So remember to stop short, allowing space for your clasp. Otherwise you're going to land up with a bracelet that's way too long for you. I'm going to bead on a bit further and then show you how to turn around and come back and join the lower strip to that top strip. For the purpose of the demo, I'm not going to bead a full strip, otherwise we'd be here a long time. So I just want to point out a few things. The columns of ladder stitch between your little rings of right angle weave, you've got 2 completely separate columns and then 1 either side making up a ring. So you've got 4 columns of 2 if you count them up. On the ends we had 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that was the start of our first ring. So when you get to the end you want to have both sides balanced. There's the first column forming the end of this last ring, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again in between you've got your first one forming the edge of a column, then 2 in the center that aren't attached to a little ring, and then a 4th one forming the start of your next ring. The other thing I want to point out to you is now we're going to bead back along this way, completing the lower strip, but you'll see that they're not connected where the ladder stitch is. They're only connected where the right angle weave is. So they're separate between, and even if we look at the very end, they're only connected on this last one here, and you can see there's a bit of a gap between the 2 strips. So I'll move that one out the way. Now we're going to pick up 4. We're turning the corner. We're going to pick up 4, and I'm going to let those drop down to the bottom of my thread. And just as we did when we first started, I'm turning this round now so that it's easier to bead and easier to see. I'm going to pass the needle up through the first 2 beads only. So again, if I move that to the side, you can see it's only 2 beads. And I'm going to move those 2 down to the strip that I've already beaded. And I'm going to pull my thread through. And I don't want to get caught around the other ones. Now, if this happens to you and you've got that gap there, it's very easy to, with your fingernails, just slide it down so that it's sitting alongside that lower beaded stitch. So now I'm going to continue. I've got to do my lots of ladder stitch first. So that's 2 columns and I need 5. So this is number 3. And I'm just going through the beads I'm using now in the other strip that I'm adding on. So up through those 2. You won't look as clumsy as I'm looking right now, because you'll be able to hold your beadwork in a way that's easier for you to get through the beads. I'm just trying to do it so that it's on camera too. 2 more to make 4. Back down through these, and I need 1 more to make my 5th column because I'm on one of the ends. I'm going to bead back up through those 2 so that I'm ready to continue to the right in the direction that I'm going. So if I pop that down there. Right, so you can see these are not joined here, but they're joined at the very end. Now I'm going to do my first ring, and we always borrowed 2 from the column before to make up the side. So I'm going to pick up 2 for the top, which are going to come across here, 2 for the other side, so that's 4 in total, which are going to come down here. And I'm now going to borrow my 2 for the bottom from these 2 top ones on the ring below. So if I pass my needle through there, I need to still go back through these first 2. And you can now see that that top ring there, sorry, my thread was in the way, that top ring is joined to that bottom ring. So we need to continue without picking up any beads. You're going to pass through the 2 that form the top and down through 2 that form the side. So now you're not just borrowing beads from the ring before, but you're borrowing beads from the ring below as well. So this first one we beaded in a clockwise position. The second ring we're going in an anti-clockwise position. So before I pick up any beads, I'm going to pass the needle through the 2 that form the top of the ring below. Turn that back round so you can see. So I'm passing through the 2 beads that form the top of the ring below. Now I can pick up the rest of my 8. So That's 2 for the side and 2 for the top. And then I'm borrowing the 2 from the previous ring that I made. And again, you need to thread your needle through so that you are exiting. So I'm coming back through the bottom 2 and up through 2 on the side. Then you're ready to do a little section of ladder stitch. So it's just picking up 2 and passing through 2. Back down through the 2 you've just added. Pick up another 2. Pass through 2. And back up through the 2 you've just added. And one more, pick up 2 so that I've got 4 columns of 2 altogether. Pass through 2 and back down through 2. So I'm going to be going in an anti-clockwise direction again. So my thread is exiting the base of my column of 2, and I'm going to thread through, if I turn it this way, the top 2 beads from the ring below. So just through those 2. And then I'm ready to add on the rest, which is another 4. So 2 for the side, 2 for the top, and back down through the original 2 on the side will make my 8. And I need to get through my beads, so through the 2 and 2 more on the side. Now I'm going in a clockwise direction, so I've got no beads to add on or join onto at the top here, so I'm going to pick up 2 for the top, 2 for the side, and I'm going to pass the needle through 2 at the bottom, but it's actually the 2 at the top from the previous strip. Up through 2 on the side. And I'm not playing ball right now. Across the 2 that are on the top. As I say, you won't look half as clumsy as me right now trying to do this on the camera. And down the 2 on the side. And you're ready to continue with a little strip of ladder stitch till you get to the next 2. And when you get to the end, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns of 2, and you'll just join the last 2 together as we did at the front. So I'm going to come back and show you how to embellish. So for embellishing, I'm going to use my crystal silver shade 4mm Swarovski Bicones and my galvanized steel size 11 seed beads. And if we look at the one that I've already done, I just want to show you how they have been added. Actually, I'll leave that one there. So you can see that if we look at, let's look at the colorful ones, they're easier to see. Top right is at that angle. Bottom right is at that angle. Bottom left is at that angle. And top left is at that angle. So they're all going from the corners, from the outer corners to the center. So when you're adding your crystals and you get up here, you're going to be adding one from this outer corner to the center. And you're going to bead through and add another one from this outer corner to the center and bead through then add one from this outer corner to the center, bead through, and from the top outer corner to the center. So sometimes it's easier to explain it like that before we get going so that it makes a bit more sense. My thread is exiting at the top, and as I said to you, I need to get to an outer corner to add my first crystal. So I'm just passing my needle backwards and forwards through my ladder stitch until I get to that one corner. Make sure you're passing through the beads because you don't want your thread showing. Right, so my thread is exiting this last column of 2 on the corner, and I'm ready to add my first bicone. I'm going to pop a size 11 either side of my bicone. So I'm going to pick up 111, one bicone, 111. And I'm going to come across to this corner, but I know I need to get down into this bottom right ring, so I'm actually, to attach it, I'm going to come down through the 2 in the middle. So I'm gone from the corner to the top corner, and you'll see now as I pull my thread through, it sits perfectly across the center, just as I wanted it to. I've now got to bead round to this outer corner on the bottom right hand side. So I just come through the 2 beads on the side, and I'm ready to pick up another bicone, but with an 11 either side. So 111, one bicone, and 111, and you can mix it up, you can use multiple colors. So we're now going from the bottom right hand corner into the center, and then we're going to come round the outside to the bottom left hand corner here. So I'm going to pass the needle through the 2 on the side, so that will allow my bicone to sit on the diagonal. There it is. And I'm going to come through these 2 on the bottom edge. Now I'm in the other corner, so I'm going to pick up an 11, a bicone, and an 11. And I'm beading to the center, but I'm wanting to get to that top ring. So I'm going to come through these 2 beads on the top here. And as I pull it through, my bicone will lie on the diagonal from the bottom left corner into the center. And I've got one more to add, so I'm going to come through the 2 on the side. I'm now ready to add my last bicone across the diagonal from the outer top left hand corner into the center of my right angle weave. And I'm going to come back through these 2. It might get a bit tight the number of times you're passing through the beads. Sorry, let me just get those down. I'm not getting my needle in there. Like all best plans, as soon as you try and do it live, there we go. So through those 2. And this one will lie across the diagonal. So there we have, let me get the tail out the way, our first little group of 4 embellishments. So now you need to pass your needle through these sets of the chain. So you've got, or the ladder stitch I should say, so through your columns of your ladder stitch. Oops. to, up to, and down to. And you're ready to start adding in your bicones again. Now if you need to watch that again, you can just pause, rewind and keep watching, but you might find your thread is in a different place. So you might want to bead round till you're coming out of one of the others. The important thing to remember is to get your crystals going from the corners, from the outer corners into the center, and keep going all the way until you're finished. So I'll come back to you and show you how to add on. I finished embellishing my netting, and I know it's going to fit beautifully around my wrist and be a nice little bit of sparkle in the evening. And I'm about to add the clasp, and I'm going back to the galvanized silver. So the beads that I originally used to make the netting, I'm going to use to attach the clasp. Now, the most important thing about attaching a clasp is don't be frightened of doing it. There are no rules. There's no right way or wrong way. You decide what's going to look good for you. So I've got, this is my tail end, my tail thread from the beginning, and this is my working thread where I've just finished embellishing the last little bit of right angle weave, and I've woven through my ladder stitch to the very end. And I'm going to add one end of my clasp by picking up 5 of my seed beads. I'm going to let them go down to the edge of my beadwork. I'm then going to pass the needle through one end of my toggle clasp, and I'm going to pass back through just one of those seed beads. Pull my thread all the way through. Now I need to match on the other side. So because I know I picked up 5 to begin with, but I've already passed back through 1, so that leaves 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to come back through my beadwork on the other side. So this time I'm just going to pass through 2 of them if I can. Oops, don't want to tangle the other end up. So if I pop that down there, you can see that's quite a neat little finish for this bracelet. And then you're just going to end off your thread. So you create a little maze going backwards and forwards through your beads. That one is a bit tight already. Maybe I will come through these 2 at the top, because there's more space this end. And just, you're losing your thread basically in a series of backwards and forwards, up and down through your beads. You can change direction, so you can bead along to the left, and then you can go back to the right, and you're just tangling that thread up really inside the beads, so that when you snip it off, it's not going to come undone. So there's one end added, and you would just pop your needle onto your tail thread and add the other end, and you have a beautiful bit of embellished netting. I'll flip it over because that's the side where you see the netting. There you go. So thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check back soon, because I'll be adding demos up regularly now. And if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments below and I'll answer them as soon as I can. Bye.